Welcome back to Healing MS. Talia is here, and today I have with me Dr. Goldner, Dr. Brooke Goldner. Dr. Goldner is a board-certificate medical doctor and the author of 3 best-selling books, The Goodbye Lupus, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, and Green Smoothie Recipes to Kickstart Your Health and Healing. She has been featured on the front cover of Vegan Health and Fitness magazine 3 times, including the recent cover of Fit Over 40. She graduated from the Carnegie, I hope I am pronouncing it correctly, Mellon University with honors for the genetic research in leukemia and neurobiology. She was a graduate of the Temple University School of Medicine, was chief resident at the UCLA Harbor Residency, and holds a certificate in plant-based nutrition from the Cornell University. She is the founder of GoodbyeLupus.com and creator of the hyper-nourishing protocol for autoimmune reversal that I can personally tell you that really works. I'm so excited. How are you? Welcome.
I'm good. I might have finally met my match. People tell me that I have unparalleled energy, but I mean, you're right up there. I don't know. This might be the most hyper interview ever seen.
It's funny. I actually had similar thoughts when I was viewing different videos that you upload, mainly on Instagram. I'm seeing you, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm feeling her.
It's good, but you know what? It feels good to feel good, right? I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. When you feel healthy, it's like, because when you're sick, you get used to acting like everybody else, even though you're tired and don't feel well. So when you actually feel good, your energy's way higher than the other people who are supposed to be normal. So I think it's just a side effect of amazing health.
Yes, definitely. And I can tell you, I've most of my life ate really well. I really care about my food. I cook most of my food, make most of it at home. And, you know, as a person that lives with MS, I know some lows in life, you know. And when I discovered you, start following you, learned what you've discovered, oh my God, let's talk about this energy. So I want to start with you sharing your story and how you got to that. I know you have a really interesting story. So please share it with our...
Yeah, absolutely. So before I ever was a doctor wearing the white coat, I was a patient wearing the patient gown, you know, drafty in the back, right? I was sick for a lot of my life, starting when I was a teenager. So 14, started getting really bad migraines where I'd be in bed for a week, throwing up, just feeling really bad. They did all the scans, you know, that my parents used to joke around. Well, you have a brain. We've seen it, you know, like that was, but they couldn't figure out what was causing it. I said, maybe it's just family history of migraines, and they gave me a medicine for pain. And that was it. Then by 16, I started having other issues pop up, which I didn't know were connected. I started getting some pain in my joints, but it would move around. Started in my shoulder, and then it would be in the other shoulder, and then it'd be my knees, and then it'd be in my fingers, and it'd be in one toe, you know, and kind of switching from day to day, couldn't figure out what it was or why. Went to the doctor. They weren't sure. They told me to take something for pain. Then I started having rashes. That would happen when I went in the sun. And one day it all came together where I had gone to the pool with my friend that day. And when I came back, I had a terrible migraine. I was throwing up. I was hurting everywhere. And when I came out of the bathroom, I had this giant rash, bright red across my cheeks and over my nose. And so my parents called my doctor, and she told us to meet in the emergency room. And finally, everything happened at the same time where they could click the boxes and say, this looks like lupus. And they did the tests, and sure enough, it was. And what we didn't know was the blood tests showed that, and then the kidney biopsy showed later that I was in stage 4 kidney failure. So that was a real surprise. I knew I had aches and pains and headaches and maybe a rash, but it's something else entirely to have one of your organs failing. And so the next day I was getting my kidney biopsy. The day after that, I was in the nephrologist's office with my mother and my grandmother being told, he told us point blank that he believed I had 6 months to live with how quickly my kidneys were failing. And that the current medical treatments we had for lupus at the time were not going to stop it. And I would be either on dialysis or I would die from the kidney failure unless I wanted to try an experimental treatment. which, yay, like, do you want, but behind A or behind door B, or, yeah, it was pretty terrifying, but, I was raised in an immigrant family. I'm firstborn in America in my family. And they very much were, you do whatever the doctor says, which is not my experience as a doctor now, but there was no Google back then. But it was like, now everyone's, gotten more ideas. But back then it was just whatever you say. So they have developed more treatments for lupus and autoimmune in general over the years. I mean, it's been decades since this happened to me, but the outcomes aren't really any better. But at the time, it was high-dose steroids. So they put me on the high-dose steroids, and then they put me on 6 other medicines on top of that, some of them for the side effects of some of the other ones, right? And then they put me on chemotherapy, which was the experimental medicine. And they still use chemotherapy, especially with lupus, when you're in danger of losing an organ, because they figure that the side effect of shutting off your immune system is better than the immune system destroying your organ. So much like MS, lupus is a disease where it can attack any of your organs. It can actually attack your nervous system too, like MS can, but it can also attack your heart, your kidneys, your lungs, everything. So we decided to try the chemotherapy, and they said, we just don't know how much to give you. So maybe we'll just watch your blood tests and decide when to stop. So 2 years later, they finally agreed to let me stop. I tried to get off it after a year, but as soon as I stopped the chemo, my kidney failure started going back the wrong way again. So 2 full years. So from 16 to 18, when other people were just planning, like, what college I want to go through to, who am I going to take to the prom, I was also trying to figure out, like, how to take my exams around my chemo schedule, because, I knew I'd be throwing up for a week and not be able to study during that time. And so I'm sure a lot of folks who are listening to this probably can relate to, when you get sick, you have some choices to make. And some people choose to make their illness their priority and then kind of put the rest of their life on hold. That's not how I did it. That's not how my family even allowed me to think about it. It was, okay, everybody's got stuff they need to do. And on your list of what you need to do is deal with your disease. But you are still going to be somebody important in this world. You're going to finish high school. You're going to go to college. You're going to live your dreams. You just have to figure out how to do that while also dealing with lupus. And I'm so grateful for that, because now my entire practice is disease reversal. It's all I do is help people with different kinds of autoimmune disease get their life back. But so many of them have put their life on hold so long, where their life is about pain and disability and medicines, but they've forgotten about their dreams and their purpose. And I feel like that's actually part of what keeps us going, and we need to find a way to stay connected to that. So for me, that's what kept me sane, was studying and imagining my future, and not learning about my disease more than I had to. We didn't have Google back then. I mean, the internet, we didn't even have email or the internet, AOL, until I was starting college. So, that was AOL, so that was, so it shows my age. So I'm kind of grateful for that. I couldn't just Google lupus and get depressed, but I remember my mom gave me a book on it, and I started reading it, and I put it away. I'm like, this is depressing. Like, I don't want to read this. And I figured, I don't want anyone else to write my story for me. Somebody else wrote this book, but that's not my story. I'll write my own story. And it turned out it was a bestseller. So that's kind of cool. But, I don't know. I just never wanted to I never believed what the doctor said, that it was going to end badly. They told me I could never have children. They told me I would become disabled probably by my 40s. I had very aggressive illness. When I went to medical school, I learned that that's probably true, but I don't know. I figured none of us really know how long we have. Somebody can be, my husband's good friend, who was completely healthy, fit guy, top of his game, just died of COVID, and he was like 50. Right. And here I stand. I was supposed to die at 16, and next week I turned 44, and I've got no health problems. So, don't let anybody write your story for you. Okay. But I did pretty well. Once I finally got off the chemo, actually a week later, I started college. I graduated top of my class. I got a scholarship to my college of choice. I was very excited, and I was off chemo. So it was like the best time of my life at the time. And I maintained remission through college. Remission, though, is not healed. And people ask me about that all the time because, I talk about disease reversal. I still had lupus. You take a blood test, all the lupus markers were there, the ANA, the dsDNA antibodies, the complement issues. I still had protein in my urine from kidney problems, which they told me I would always have that because of the damage that was caused by the lupus when I was sick. I still had arthritis, but when I had arthritis, I took pain medicine. Still had migraines, but I'd take pain medicine. I didn't go in the sun because I'd get a rash and get joint pain. So I managed. And so for me, remission meant I'm not currently dying from this disease, right? I'm stable, but still definitely had it, and then I stayed that way through college. And then I went to medical school, which is not what your doctor recommends. They say always, get enough rest and avoid stress. So the trifecta was get enough rest, avoid stress, and stay out of the sun. I successfully stayed out of the sun because I was studying all the time. So I did that. But medical school is impossible. Like they do not care when you're supposed to show up at the hospital at 6 a.m. They don't care if your joints hurt. They don't care about it. I mean, like that, you just have to do it or don't do it, So at the time there wasn't, I feel like I'm talking about the olden days. Like we didn't have laws at the time on how many hours we were allowed to work. They've changed it since then. Now it's 80 hours max per week, but at the time we didn't have a law protecting us. So I remember at one point I was working 100-hour weeks. I was getting up, at 5 to get to the hospital to pre-round before the doctors, then staying to finish up after the doctors leave. And then I'd fall asleep sitting on the couch while Jeopardy was on. My roommate loved Jeopardy. But it was just exhausting. And so I actually got sick again in medical school. Not my kidneys this time, but I started getting double vision, and I ended up passing out in one of the clinics. And it turned out that I was having mini strokes because lupus can also create blood clots. So I developed antiphospholipid antibodies that were creating blood clots. So every time I got double vision, it was blood clots going into my brain. Just terrifying, especially for a nerd, because I had no other skills. I love to dance, but I'm clumsy. I'm not an athlete. If you throw a ball at me, it's more likely to hit me in the face than have me catch it. I have no other skills besides, my brain. That's it. So I had always understood on some level that I might be in a wheelchair one day, but I thought I can still be a doctor and be in a wheelchair. But having a major stroke, which could, make me unable to do my job, that was terrifying. So I think that's the first time I really felt in a deep way the sadness and fear of being sick much deeper than when I was 16. Because I think at 16, I was, I think it was harder to have that existential understanding. And I also had no background in really knowing what I had versus being a medical student who was very fully aware of what I had. And on top of that, having such a serious problem that could possibly kill me or make me disabled mentally as well. It was very hard. And I think I spent about 2 weeks crying about it. And I do recommend you mourn when things go wrong. We can't bottle it up and pretend it's not happening. We have to feel it. I leaned on people who I knew I could talk to. And then I came back to the place of gratitude that I always live in because, I had to take an injection every day for blood thinning, but it didn't get me. And that's when I always came back. I always called myself the comeback kid. So I'd be like, lupus is coming for me, but I always come back, like the kidneys came back, we got, mini strokes came back. Here I am. And I, at the time, was only a few months away from graduating. I'd already got my first choice of residency at Harvard UCLA. I was leaving Pittsburgh, heading for the Sunshine State. Like, it was just so cool. And I was like, how many people get to live their dreams? Lupus or not, like how many people and I have never stopped going after my dreams. And I was proud and I was grateful. And so that was, that was where I was right when everything changed for me. So I was back in this state of like, I'm generally just a happy, grateful person. And so I never let lupus take that from me. And when I met my husband, it's really when everything else changed. So I would love, like, people ask me all the time how I had this like brilliant intuition to know that there was something better that I could do for the lupus that wasn't medical. No, I didn't know it. The people who find me, they have more intuition than I did because they're looking for it. I had no idea. I mean, I grew up with lupus and listened to my doctors, and they kept me alive, and I'm grateful. Medicines can keep you alive. I'd be dead at 16 without them, right? And then I did genetic research in leukemia and neurology. And then I went and got a medical degree. I had no idea that there was anything else I could be doing besides being grateful for the fact that medicines were still keeping me alive. And I was grateful for that, because the alternative was worse. So I didn't have any insight. I just happened to fall in love with the right person, and then it changed everything. So that's really where all this started after that was I fell in love with my husband. He wasn't my husband at the time. He was just a gorgeous, amazing man. And he wanted to marry a sick woman. And, I've actually had some patients who feel guilty about finding love when they're sick, like that they owe it to their partner to be healthy. I think that's utter horse crap, where we can't tell people who they should love, and we all deserve love. And hey, most people get married. You don't know what you're getting. That's why they say in sickness and in health in the vows, because you could marry someone sick or someone healthy who then is sick. So why can't you be loved sick? So I had no problem with that. I just wanted him to be forewarned, because he was talking about marriage like a month after we met. And I had to tell him, like, I can't have your kids because I've been told that'll kill me. Between strokes and kidney failure, it's not in the cards for us. I'm going to become disabled. And I'm not going to live a long life, and you'll probably have to take care of me when I become disabled before I die younger than you. It's not romantic, but it was honest, it was
You're
honest.
always an exciting woman.
Well, I never talked about it much. I wasn't lying to him or keeping it from him. I just kept lupus in its box. Like, it's something I have to deal with while I live my life the way I was raised to. I take my medicine, I take my shots, and then I live my life. So he knew I had something. He knew I took medicine, but I never made it like, I talked to him about music and art and our dreams for the future. I didn't talk to him about, joint pain, so I had to kind of lay it down for him. And he's amazing. I mean, he said he'd rather live a short life with me than a lifetime with anybody else. And he just wanted to marry me and take care of me and give me a great life. So I said, cool, let's get married. So that was, so because of that, the fast forward is my husband's specialty is understanding the cellular biology of metabolism. So he's one of the top people in understanding how to create a fast metabolism on a cellular basis. Like, it doesn't matter if you're 15 or you're 90, you can have a fast metabolism. You can build muscle easily, lose fat easily. And he was a celebrity trainer already, working with people on MTV, stuff like that. And he looked like he was amazing. He was, I don't know how old you are. You look young, but I don't know if you remember like MTV URL. Was that a thing when you were around? I don't know how many people.
I was in Israel
that.
back then, so it was probably different MTV.
Okay. Well, MTV was the place to see music back then, because we couldn't use like iTunes, or there was no like YouTube. So you had to basically sit and watch MTV all day and hope that the song you wanted came on. It was pretty cool. And then they used to have like a reality show called TRL, and then like The Real Life or whatever, but it was fake because it was a reality show. And so they had this beach house where celebrities would come and sing, and then they would all be in their bathing suits and stuff. And so my husband was 2003 MTV's Hottest Bodies at the beach house. So anyway, for those of you who are as old as I am or older and know about it, it's kind of cool. Anyway, so he was super fit, but also extremely intelligent. He went to Carnegie Mellon. He has a master's degree in exercise science, health promotion, and he knew how to apply what he knew. So I asked him to train me for our wedding. And, what he told me was I was on the perfect diet to be overweight and unhealthy, which is hospital food. That's like, you want to be fat and sick, you eat hospital food. It's great for business for the hospital. So I was vegetarian, but I ate tons of dairy. I mean, in Pittsburgh, where I was training, if you ordered a salad at the hospital, they would put French fries and ranch dressing on top, of the salad. So he agreed to train me, but he said, you've got to get rid of all of this dairy. It's making you fatter. It's not good for fat loss. And I wouldn't eat meat, because he still had meat as part of the program. It was supposed to be the free range kind that's supposed to be less inflammatory. People are familiar with paleo. They say that. He was doing this over 15 years ago, before there was this paleo movement, from his own research. And he thought you needed meat for protein, whatever. So I wouldn't eat the meat. he took me off the dairy. So I accidentally ended up on what we call a plant-based diet, where I had no animal products at all. And I had no processed foods. And I was eating lots of raw foods, especially vegetables, lots of omega-3 fatty acids, and high water intake, all things I never paid attention to before. And even though I was eating more calories than I used to, I lost tons of weight. So within 3 months, I lost over 20 pounds. I went from a size 11 to a size 3. And for the first time in my life, since I was 14, I had no pain. I had tons of energy. I was now an intern working 30-hour shifts at the hospital, and I had the energy to go to the gym after, which people without lupus don't do that. But I was just so energized. I felt good, and I felt so awesome. I didn't know if I was just on the wings of love or what it was, but I was just feeling really good. And then when we went to go for my my lab checkup before the wedding, I went back. It was 3 months after I'd changed my diet, and the labs showed me negative for lupus. And so, they thought it was a lab mistake because I'd had lupus for 12 years at that point, and it's always been positive. Obviously, I had this disease. So they told me to enjoy the wedding, come back, and they tested it again, and it was negative for lupus again. And my high cholesterol, which I was told was genetic, was normal. And that was 15 years ago. In the past 15 years, I've never had a relapse. I have had normal labs. I've had 2 healthy children, and I've dedicated my life to disease reversal. And when we did this, we actually didn't just start promoting what we did, because as 2 scientists and as someone who used to be sick, I don't think it's an integrity when people say, just do what I did. I think it works, but they don't even know what made me healthier. What did I get better in spite of? And testing every ingredient. A lot of times they don't test every ingredient. So we did that. We spent at least a year reverse engineering it, only after I had my first son, and I still never got my disease back. That's when we were like, okay, this is not normal, right? And only when we had a program that was reproducible with every person we tested it on, and we knew that there was nothing that was fluff or, accidental, that's when we started teaching it. So even though I've been healthy for 15 years, I've been off meds. I took medicine for 1 year after I was negative, just because I didn't know that I could stop it, because as a doctor, I still thought I had the disease, even though I didn't have it on labs, and I felt fine because it was incurable. So I must have it. It's just invisible now, right? So kept injecting myself with blood thinners and all that stuff for a year. So but I've been healthy all this time, but it's only been about 10 years that we've been been teaching disease reversal. And in that 10 years, it's been extraordinary. I went from nobody even knowing who I was to, I was just on live news yesterday morning, where I'm on the news all the time. And I've been on, TV shows like the Home and Family Show, and I've been on magazine covers. It's like my books became bestseller before I even published them. It's been this whirlwind. And I never really cared about that. I actually planned to just be a doctor for the homeless. I never had any interest in publicity or anything. But what it means to me is that it's catching on, and that it's working. And so for people all over the world, even yourself, I never met you personally. You learned my program and your MS went away. And I didn't even have to like meet with you. You know what I mean? Like that I teach my protocol for free online. I do live Q&As with the public, and usually people from at least 6, 7, 8 countries show up at a time with these huge Q&As that I do for free. I do as much as I can for free to help the public, so people can understand this is just, there's nothing else that, I'm not doing it for any other reason than to help. But it's been extraordinary, and it's made every day I was ever sick worth it. Every time I get a message from someone like you or anybody else that says, because of you, I'm alive again. My disease is gone. I'm living my dreams. It's extraordinary. So it's that is the shortest version of this extraordinary, amazing life that I get to live now, and why I do what I do.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It is an amazing story. And how sometimes the lower places in our life are actually redesigning our story and our purpose here. And out of that, we're creating such incredible things. So that is a powerful story, and it is working. So
yeah, our pain creates our greatest gifts once we get through them. While we're sick, we don't know why we're sick. I remember wondering that sometimes, like, why would God make good people suffer? Like, why do I'm a good person? You know, even when I was 3 years old, I used to collect bugs so no one would step on them. Like, I've always had this like protective, giving, nurturing soul. Why am I suffering? What did I do? You know, the bully on the playground, he seems fine, you know, but we don't know why when we're getting through it. We just have to get through it. Yeah. But when you're through it and you master it and you conquer it, man, there's so many gifts that open up, and the world is completely different, and you learn what you're made of. I always tell people, listen, I'm a big superhero fan. Every superhero has a really tough origin story. You know, Superman's planet exploded, you know, Spider-Man's uncle was murdered, right? There's some tough origin stories. And if you're having a tough time right now, this is your origin story. So you get through it, and then you're just becoming the hero that you were meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want you to share with with our listeners, what are the main, you shared a little bit, but what are the main points of the diet that you use to, you know, reverse the diseases of all your patients? And, well, I have more questions, but we'll go there after. Let's start with that.
So what I teach is something called hyper-nourishment. What I found in my work is that what people are missing is the greatest driver of disease, because we have damage that's created to our bodies from our lifestyles, right? Whether it's stress, trauma, diet, all the things that happen in our environment, exposure to medicines, all sorts of things, right? Those build up over time. Now, our cells all are programmed to be able to repair themselves. That's their job. They have a little instruction manual built into the DNA. But in order for them to do that job, they have to have the right ingredients to do it. So you create damage with all the stuff you did. You had a cheeseburger, you had a rough day at work, and you know, whatever it is that has created some damage today. And then your body's like, okay, that hurts. I need to fix it. All right, give me some vitamins, some minerals. I need some omega-3 fatty acids. I need enough water to do this. All right, what do we got? All right, we got some Pepsi. That's not going to work. All right, where's the vitamins? We got nothing. Where's the minerals? I don't know. He had a lettuce on the burger. There's nothing in that. And so they stay sick. And so chronic illness is really something that we've created for ourselves. It's not a natural process of the body. It's something that we've basically invented for ourselves because we have lifestyles that create damage, and then we're starved of the components that heal the damage. So hyper-nourishment added to any diet creates dramatic changes in the body. And depending on how much damage you're causing in relation to how much you're nourishing, you can create really good results even while you're still adding bad stuff. And then if you remove the bad stuff, you can get all the way to the finish line. So for example, so with hyper-nourishment, one, the biggest deficiency people have is actually minerals. It would be vitamins and minerals, but a lot of people take vitamins in a pill, right? So the greatest source of the vitamins and the minerals is actually in vegetables. Fruits are nice, but they don't have anywhere near the kind of nutrition as something that's sitting in the soil where the minerals are. The highest dose of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and all those great nutrients you want is actually in cruciferous vegetables, like kale, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, all the things that people kind of shove off their plates. Those are actually the most nutrient dense. And so I have people really focus on high amounts of that. The majority of their diet is coming from those foods while they're healing, if they're trying to heal faster, because you've been starved for so long, your tank is empty. So we're not going to refill the tank of vitamins and minerals with an apple here or there. You can really refill it quickly if you stick to cruciferous vegetables, dark leafy greens. The other thing people are deficient in is omega-3 fatty acids, which create the anti-inflammatory immune system. So if you're creating damage with creating inflammation, so example, processed foods, any kind of animal product, even the free-range meat, dairy products, all that are higher in omega-6 than anything else. And omega-6 creates the inflammatory immune system. We need an inflammatory immune system. That's what deals with infections. However, an overactive inflammatory immune system will create chronic inflammation in the body, which will trigger more disease. To counteract it, you need an omega-3 fatty acid response, which creates an anti-inflammatory immune system. So if you're creating inflammation over here and you don't have enough to balance it out, you've got chronic disease. So what I do is I say, okay, let's stop feeding the omega-6 because you're like this, your ratio is down here, we need it here. So shut this valve off, stop eating processed foods, meat, dairy, all the extra oils, and start eating lots of flax seeds and chia seeds and flaxseed oil and stuff like that. Bring your omega-3s up. You're going to have a dramatic decrease in the inflammation in your body. You're going to feel better very, very quickly. And a lot of people are eating either fat-free diets where they're not getting the full response till they add omega-3s, or they're still adding other kinds of fat to their diet. There's all sorts of fads out there promoting like, oh, it's butter, put it in your coffee. What? You don't even need to have a degree in nutrition to know on some level that's probably not right. Like your grandma would say, I don't think you should put the butter in the coffee. I don't know. But, I just did a Fox News had me come on to do a debate with a keto doctor, which I feel like at this point that should be malpractice. I mean, to tell people to eat as much bacon and butter as they want. And he's doing it because he's a weight loss specialist. And I was like, yes, you can lose weight eating no carbohydrates, no fruits and vegetables, and lots of bacon and butter. You can lose weight on that while dramatically increasing your risk of cancer and heart disease and autoimmune disease. Or you can get rid of those things and eat fruits and vegetables, which are anti-cancer, which will heal your body and lose weight as well. It's not like I'm dealing with an obesity issue. I mean, there's lots of ways to lose weight while getting sicker. Chemotherapy worked well for me. When I was on chemotherapy, I was under 100 pounds. Doesn't mean it was good for me, it drives me nuts. It's so unscientific. And it just really showcases how little doctors know about nutrition. I mean, what I know is from a dozen years of research and work. None of it came from my medical training. They didn't teach us any of it. Okay. Although they did teach us, don't give butter to people with heart disease and don't give sugar to people with diabetes. That was it. So anyway, so that's the other part. We get the omega-3s up really high, and then water intake. Very little emphasis in this world on how much water you really need. Water is essential for filling out your joint padding, for optimizing brain function. If you have headaches, you're probably dehydrated. Constipation, you're probably dehydrated. But also it is a key ingredient to eliminating inflammation. And so even if your diet's great, if you're dehydrated, you're not going to get that full reversal. So I have people on pretty high water intake, about 96 ounces a day minimum, to allow all that to happen. And when you combine those ingredients, people start feeling really good. When you start combining those ingredients and eliminating the inflammatory stuff, they get better really quickly. And that's what I've become famous for most, is rapid recovery, where people come to me really sick and within days to like a month or two, they're gone, disease is gone. Like I have a rapid recovery group and we were on day six. Someone with severe lupus is already pain-free on day 6.
Wow.
That's my world, which is like the best world in the world. And that's why I'm so excited all the time, because normally doctors just see their patients get worse. I get to do this and see people just dramatically get better in very short periods of time. So that's the basis for it.
Well, a lot of what I hear, I'm vegan too. I actually chose vegan lifestyle right after my diagnosis. And a lot of what I hear is conversations about protein. I would love for you to share a little bit about that.
There's so much nutrition mythology out there, and protein is one of those things. So, all right, how do I quickly help people understand? So number one, protein was the first macronutrient discovered. So macronutrients are proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, right? So when we were looking under the microscope, not me, but some scientist was looking under the microscope and he discovered protein, and he went, oh, I found what's in food that gives us our strength. This is what's in food, right? He thought he found the thing. So that created a lot of excitement. Protein, it must be really important. And there was a lot of industries that were very excited with that news. Egg, meat, dairy, they're like, we have protein. We have the most protein. Let's advertise how good protein is, right? So they thought this was this big deal. But then there were scientists who came along who thought this was true and started testing it. So for example, T. Colin Campbell, he wrote the China study. He was doing research at Cornell over 40 years ago. And he grew up in a meat and dairy farm. And his thought was, if I can make animals get bigger, more muscle, more protein, we can solve world hunger, because protein is the key to life, right? He started doing experiments and he was testing mice. And what he found was whenever he tried to raise the protein, they were getting cancer. They were growing tumors all over their body. And he's like, this doesn't seem like it should be happening. And then when he started, and he was actually using milk protein. So not the fat, the protein, casein. And whenever he switched groups where he went high protein to low protein, he could turn the cancer on and off. Low protein, cancer stops growing. High protein, cancer starts growing. Low protein, cancer stops growing. And he went, this seems like it's bad. So T. Colin Campbell, he actually tried to bring his results and publish it, but back then the dairy industry lobbied against him. It's a very sad story, but he actually had to publish his own data like 40 years after the fact. And it became really popular. And it's a reason for a lot of plant-based doctors who read his research and went, wow, this is real stuff. Okay. So what we found is while protein is a macronutrient, it is a part of every food, not just meat and dairy. It is a part of every food. We have the building blocks of different proteins, amino acids in all things, in leaves, in all of the vegetables. Everything that you eat has protein in it. And so your body can take those amino acids and it can build whatever protein it needs, even if you're getting it in plant form. When you're eating an animal, that animal, humans in general, we're kind of wimpy. So we only eat herbivores, right? You don't see like any humans who are on like a carnivore diet. They're eating mountain lions and, like, no, why? Because they will kick our ass, right? So humans started eating herbivores because they're gentle and trusting and they just let us farm them and kill them, right? It's kind of sad, but that's the fact, right? So these herbivores who have these big muscles full of protein, where are they getting their protein? From the grass that they're eating, right? From the vegetables and the grains and all the other stuff. The herbivores are actually the biggest animals on the land, right? The biggest animals on the land. You look at an elephant, right? The biggest animals we've got on the land walking around are herbivores. An elephant is much bigger than a mountain lion, right? They're bony. Their shoulder blades are all sticking out and stuff, right? So we have become brainwashed by industry and by some of the scientists who misunderstood it. And then the industries took over the advertising for it to think that we need to somehow eat an animal in order to get protein, which our body needs so much. But what we found is, and this has been proven in many studies, high protein diets lead to disease, cancer, heart disease, animal protein specifically. So loading up on protein actually is bad for your health. And two, protein is everywhere. I can tell you as a physician who worked in hospitals originally that I have never, ever seen someone become protein deficient from a diet, ever. The only time someone's protein deficient is from a disease like kidney failure, because your kidneys are supposed to filter and keep your proteins in and just let the salts out. But if your kidneys are damaged, proteins can get through the damage and come out. That's why people with kidney failure have protein in their urine. So when people do my programs who have kidney failure, and I've published reversing end-stage kidney failure with diet alone, right? I'm really good at that. What I found is that people in kidney failure have low protein in their blood because they're losing it out of their urine. And when they eat more protein from animal sources, they can lose, their kidneys fail faster because kidneys are sensitive to, and they've shown this even in non-fringe medicine, that anyone with kidney failure should be on a low protein diet. They should be on a no meat diet, but because it damages kidneys. So those people have low blood protein levels. We put them on a raw plant-based diet. They're eating greens and cruciferous vegetables all day, and their protein levels go up to normal. Why? Because why would your protein level go up eating broccoli? Because the problem is not how much you eat, it's how much you're losing from your body. So nobody has had any kind of protein deficiency. Protein levels usually go up when people are eating all of these vegetables because there's less damage to the kidneys, and high protein causes disease. So, it's, I think that pretty much addresses the protein issue, no?
I do too.
My husband, his specialty is in fitness. In addition to he does the healing work with me because he created the original protocol that healed me by accident, right? So we've been studying this together a long time. But when he started he wanted to look at, do you actually need protein like meat to be muscular? Because he was very muscly when I met him. And he's like, if I switch, because I agree with you that plant-based is healthier, but will I become some skinny vegan and lose my fitness career? If I start eating like you, like I'll be healthier, but skinny. And then what about my business? And he studied it and he's done a lot of work, publishing it and making videos of himself every day, showing himself. And what he found is he can build muscle much faster on less than half the protein when he does it plant-based versus meat-based.
Wow.
So it's just not a real issue. It's just one that's been sold to us at our own, at our own risk and our own pain that it's caused us.
Wow. I'm sure that so many people are being extremely surprised right now by the facts you're sharing.
It's like waking up from the Matrix. Believe me, I get it. It's like that scene from the Matrix when he wakes up and he's like naked and full of goop and everyone else is plugged in and he's like, what? No, this can't be a reality. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to learn this, but man, it's worth it to make the change.
Yeah. I wanted to also ask you about fish, because I know that specifically I've been hearing a lot in the MS community that a lot of people, the awareness for the omega-3 exists. And then the thought behind, I need to consume as much fish as I can for it, keeps coming back.
Fish for the omega-3s, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only reason that fish have omega-3s is because they eat algae. So just like the cow having muscle because he's eating grass, the fish have omega-3 because they're eating algae. So it's not something that is innate to fish that we need to eat fish. I remember when I originally started doing this, I actually was using things like fish oil for omega-3s because it was so high dose and you can get EPA and DHA, and it works. Only if you're using the real stuff, not the capsules that you keep in your cabinet that go rotten, but the liquid. You won't drink rotten fish oil, right? So like that liquid refrigerated cod liver oil thing. So omega-3s are definitely beneficial. Using the cod liver oil liquid out of the bottle is pretty nasty. And it's unsustainable when you look at the planet too. And it's not necessary. So when I started, gosh, how long ago now? Probably at least 10 years ago, maybe longer, 11 years ago, I switched to plants using flax, chia seeds, flaxseed oil, and the results were the same. And it's not gross, and it's cheaper. I mean, I got flax seeds from my natural food store in the bins for $1.27 a pound. It takes me a minute to work through that. So it works really well. Plus, the other problem with fish is if it's a farmed fish, which nowadays most of the stuff in the supermarket is farmed, they feed them the wrong diet. They're not eating algae, they're eating corn and all sorts of crap. So they don't have omega-3 fatty acids anymore. They're now fully inflammatory. So that's one problem. The other problem is farmed fish are very high in disease because they're farmed so intimately close together. They share diseases. They tend to be very sick. And the other problem is even in the wild caught fish, it was years ago. It was before I moved to Texas. So it had to be like 7 years ago or so, where they actually did studies. Government agencies did study where they were pulling fish out of the ocean all over the planet to test them. And all of them were full of environmental pollution, because when it rains down pollution, where does it go? The ocean. And so the fish are absorbing the pollution, it's called PCBs, into their fat. And so we're eating that, and we're getting the toxins from pollution into our body. That's a problem. On top of things like mercury. So in the past year, I can think of at least 3 people off the top of my head who had mercury poisoning because they went from eating meat to thinking fish was better. So they were eating fish multiple times a week and they got mercury poisoning. So I don't see the plus side there. Like I said early on, was that, I think even before we went live, I was talking about how, there's sometimes that people, they don't look at the full picture, or they're like, oh, I seem to get better like this, so maybe I'll just keep doing this and not really research what it is and if it's going to work for everyone. If there's some people who seem to be okay on fish and other people who are getting mercury poisoning and all sorts of other problems, that doesn't seem like a solution for me. I like things that work every time. That I'm very results based. That's my religion, is my results. Only do what works. If something works for one person and makes the other person sicker, that's not a result that I'm going to repeat. That's like the paleo thing for autoimmune. I've helped many people with MS fully reverse all their symptoms like you have, right? And they've reversed the lesions off their MRI. I've had 3 people who've done my rapid recovery group and got us an MRI that showed their latest lesion was gone. And all of the times, the person reading the MRI went, well, that's not possible. So maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was like there was a scratch on the film. Like it can't be artifact, they call it. Like it can't be real. It really works. So I've never seen anything like that in any other program, but a lot of the times people will do like AIP where they're saying, yeah, eat lots of vegetables, don't eat dairy. I like all of that. And then they'll, eat free range meat, less inflammatory. The problem is some people do that. And because it's a better diet than they used to be on, they feel a lot better. But then other people, they get worse. And people with autoimmune disease often go into kidney failure because they were already sensitive and then they added all this animal protein. So you got to think about that. If something's actually good for you, it'll be good for everyone because we are all made of the same cells. No matter what we look like, we are made of the same cells. We need the same nutrition. So if something makes some people sicker and other people feel better, then it wasn't really that thing that was working for them. And I know a protocol. I know a protocol that's known for MS. I know the person who created it, who told me that she didn't start getting results until she added 8 cups of vegetables a day. She was already eating free range meat, but she still was sick. Then she added 8 cups of vegetables a day, and then she started to feel better. It was the vegetables. That's the same thinking, and she's a doctor. It's the same thinking that doctors use when they give you a medicine and you don't get better, so they just add another one. I hate that. I never do that as a doctor. If I give you a medicine and it doesn't work, I take it away and I try something else. But I have a lot of colleagues who do that. People are on 7 pills and they didn't start feeling better till the 6th one. Why would you keep the others, right? So that idea of like, oh, well, I feel better now, so I'm going to assume everything I did is why I feel better. You got to test it. And I asked that doctor because she's not 100% better. She told me she still can like stand for 2 hours and then has to rest. Like she doesn't have a full recovery like I do, or like my clients. I have a client with MS who did my rapid recovery group who runs 5Ks and does not Ironman, but those like tough mudders and things where she's covered in mud and doing like army crawls and stuff. She had MS and she's doing that stuff with no symptoms at all, right? There's a big difference between the two. So I asked that doctor, have you ever tried giving up meat to see if you get better? And she said, no, I've never tried it. Then you haven't tested your ingredients. I tested them, right? You haven't tested to see, oh, am I better because of the addition of meat to the vegetables, or am I better because of the vegetables? One way to find out.
Testing. It also makes so much sense to me in my own story. When I got diagnosed, I mean, it was the whole package. I was in bed married, so I was emotionally down. I didn't deal with, at that point, with like past trauma from my childhood. And I apparently lived in an apartment with mold, a lot of mold inside the AC. And I was working on building my body and working out and really believing the protein myth. So I was eating so much meat and chicken and animal. I mean, not dairy. I was not ever a fan of that, but a lot of meat, the best meat that existed, but a lot of that. And I had sensitivities to a lot of vegetables. So at that time I was barely eating raw vegetables. Boom, diagnosis, a mix of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very common when people are eating high amounts of meat, it actually messes up the immune system so that people get a lot of allergies. There was a bodybuilder that I helped who, he just went to the gym with me. He didn't know who he was talking to. We were just working out next to each other and I used to see him every day. Freddie, he was a retired police officer, bodybuilder. And he just started chatting with me one day about how he's so mad that his blood pressure was high. And he's like, I work out, I eat healthy. Like, I don't know why my blood pressure's high. And I was like, oh, really? What do you eat? You know, I just like, what kind of food are you eating? You know, like, what do you know? And he ate tons of meat. He started before workout, big glass of milk, right? Get that protein before the workout, tons of meat and almost no fruits and vegetables. And I told him, you need to start eating. I told him like a little bit of my background. And I said, you just happen to be talking to me. There's no coincidences, right? So I told him what to do. And he goes, I can't eat fruits. I'm allergic to them all. And he goes, I didn't used to be, but now I need an EpiPen. I can't go near fruit. And some of my favorite things were fruits. I said, it's because of all the meat and dairy you're eating. Take them out, see what happens. And it was like a month later, he asked my husband if he could hug me and he picked me up. He said he could eat fruit again, no allergies. Wow. Blood pressure was better. So I walked into the gym one day and he had a crowd of people around him and he was telling the story. And he was like, you got to read Bye Bye Lupus. It's called Goodbye Lupus. It's called Goodbye Lupus. But he was just like, Bye Bye Lupus. You got to read. She's amazing. I was just working out with her and then my allergies are better. I can eat watermelon again. But people don't realize because it doesn't seem connected. But when you get rid of all the animal products, your immune system actually calms down for real. The allergies get better, the food sensitivities go away, and you actually fully heal and reverse the disease rather than get into like this precarious remission state, which, hey, remission's better than being actively ill, but you can do better. And that's important.
Definitely. Dr. G, I love calling you Dr. G, you know it. You are amazing. I hope that you'll keep having this energy and change lives and change the world every day when you wake up. I am grateful for you. I'm so happy that you're sharing your knowledge. You can follow her on all channels of social media. Check out her books. It's working. It's working.
Thank you so much. Well, this is why I do this, and I appreciate you sharing the word. I think that that's the big, well, I know that that's what's pushing the movement, because I've testified to the USDA multiple times. They don't change. Because after my testimony is the meat industry's testimony and the sugar industry's testimony and the dairies. And it's going to be a long time before they actually start taking action that's good for people rather than good for industry and business. And that's hard for me to say, because I grew up with trusting soul. I'm not one of those people who's just suspicious and all that. I'm a trusting soul. It's by trying to change things on a government level that I've really seen they don't actually have our best interests out for us, but they can't stop what we're doing, which is sharing the truth. We're sharing the truth through our own experiences. I mean, anyone can look at you and see a glowing, vital, healthy person. And you're saying you did that with nutrition. And that's what I did. And that's what people all over the world are doing. And so we just keep sharing, and the movement keeps growing. And, and that's what's going to make the difference in the world. We're going to do it from the bottom up. We're going to keep touching other people's lives and sharing until autoimmune disease becomes something that we used to deal with rather than something that we all suffer from. So I appreciate any opportunity to get to share. And so thanks for inviting me to do that. It's been a total pleasure hanging out with you today.
Absolutely. I do want to say, I think it's the whole package. I find from a lot of people that have MS and other autoimmune diseases that it's a lot about also emotions and how we think and past trauma that we're dealing with and toxins. But definitely, at least from my experience, and I'm hearing that from yours as well, diet is a huge, huge thing. So all of you listening on the other side, take action right now. You are in charge of your life, of your health, of your body.
Yeah, and you're right. That's why, like my newest book, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, not only do I have case studies like in MS and RA and scleroderma and Sjogren's and lupus and even things like diabetes. I've and all the different things. The majority of the book is about the mindset, right? Because, my original specialty, I realized that the best way I could help people with their health was through their mind, because as a medical student, that's what I saw. People with depression didn't get better. People who were happy could leave the hospital with a diagnosis that they shouldn't have been able to walk away from. And so I thought, well, that's what I've always been good at, is gratitude and happiness. And so I decided, let me do that first. Let me go into psychiatry, and I specialize in trauma. And what I found when I moved into doing full time, which I believe is what I was meant to do, that I'm still dealing every day with trauma and anxiety and depression, because people with trauma have extremely high rates of autoimmune disease. So, all the things that you talked about, so that sets the stage for disease. You have the genes for disease, but they have to be turned on. And what turns them on? A lifetime of damage, like I talked about before, not just from diet, but from stress and trauma and low moods, poor self-care, poor sleep. And so the cells get sicker and sicker. And finally, they're too sick to fight back enough, and you cross the threshold into disease. But you can cross back over again. And I think that's the beacon of hope we need to be, is that, yes, you have to deal with your traumas. That's what I do. My rapid recovery group, people think it's just nutrition. No, every day I'm working on changing their mindset, helping them not sabotage themselves, right? And that's what I wrote about in Goodbye Autoimmune Disease, because I know that once this is on board, diet's easy. If you think the diet's hard, it's because your life is hard, you're stressed, and you're needing your food to be your best friend and your medicine and your antidepressant and all the things, your drug to get high. That's a problem. When you learn how to find happiness and gratitude in your life, which is what I teach people how to do, then food just becomes a tool. You don't look for brushing your teeth to give you joy. You don't need your salad to give you joy. You need your life to give you joy. So I feel like that's a big part of why I also am able to help people really embrace and get their health back, is because I'm teaching them how to live a life of joy and peace and passion and purpose while eating the right foods. And when the stress comes down and happiness goes up, the food does its job and the disease goes away quickly.
Amazing words. Again, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.